Welcome back to the Dark Matter podcast. Today, I am delighted to welcome a very inspiring young woman. Kyzzhibek Batyrkanova is a trailblazer for gender equality and the empowerment of girls and women in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. When I first heard about her story and the space journey she and her colleagues embarked on, I was in disbelief. If I told you about it, you might not even believe it. So I think it's better we hear it from them directly. Kyzzhibek, welcome to the Dark Matter podcast. How are you today?
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting us to this podcast. We are very thrilled. Today, my colleague, Anna, is also joining us. I think we might also have another colleague who is joining us at the moment, Aidana. Aidana, it's great to see you as well.
Hi.
So you are the program director of the Kyrgyz Space Program, a unique first of its kind initiative in Central Asia that aims to empower girls and women to literally reach for the stars. But before we get into the specifics of the program, what you're trying to achieve and why you're doing this, I'd like to ask you, all three of you actually, I'd like to ask you more of a big picture question. What does space mean to you? Why does it matter to you? And how has it empowered you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I can start and then my colleagues can also add. So for me personally, the space was all about, beautiful pictures, very picturesque movies. I really loved, watching the sky, watching the moon change as well, all of its phases. I really loved all the space movies, but I never thought of something real, I guess. And it just happens to be so my country where I grew up was never associated in any kind with space. And for me, now it is very sad and unfortunate because as I usually say that my country, Kyrgyzstan, and people here think that space and Kyrgyzstan are two parallels that are not or were not supposed to meet. So this is a perception of space that we unfortunately have. Therefore, when I was growing up, I never thought that, I could work in space industry. I knew that back in the USSR, the time where my parents grew up, there was a generation of people who really wanted to be astronauts, cosmonauts, and space engineers. But unfortunately, for my generation, that was not the story. And therefore, I would say that my space interest mainly arose from watching the movies. And then when this program was established, I was really interested, like, wow, you can actually work in space being in Kyrgyzstan. So it was really exciting. And now I don't think of space as only, beautiful pictures, but for me, it's also a science, it's a mission, it's passion, and something that can attract more girls and youth to STEM.
Fantastic. If you guys want to jump in, please feel free to. But one point I want to stress, Kyzzhibek, is indeed, as you suggest, your background is not really in space. You studied, I believe, economics and programming. So I'm also curious how you first heard about space, how that became something you wanted to focus on. But perhaps if your colleagues want to jump on why space matters to them and what it means to them.
Space always has been unreal, for Kyzzhibek. But now I think about it as a tool for something that is useful here on Earth, because many technologies that we use today are made for space missions originally. And the space was actually close to me all the time because recently I found out that my grandmother's brother was working for that institution in Bishkek that was making details for spacecrafts back in the USSR. And my family just, I guess they just didn't think that it was important. And I didn't know about it until recently. It was close every time.
What about you, Aidana? Do you have anything to add? What does space mean to you?
I actually, as Kyzzhibek, I never thought that I'll end up working in this field because space was so far from me. Like growing up, I watched space movies or cartoons only like sitting at home, and I don't know, I never dreamed of becoming an astronaut because I kind of realized that it's not quite possible in our country. And I think when I ended up being in this program, I was quite interested because it was so like wild. The idea was so wild. But yeah, coming here, I realized that I would love to give the new generation of Kyrgyz girls and boys the dream that they can start dreaming about becoming like aerospace engineers or like astronauts, because I think I would love to. Like lots of people ask me like, oh, you're working on satellites, you must love space like since the very childhood. And I'm like, actually no, because I never knew that I had opportunity, like that there was a possibility to do that. So yeah, I think
that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And actually that brings us more specifically to the program you guys are part of. So Kyzzhibek, you're the program director of the Kyrgyz Space Program. Can you tell us a little bit what this program is about?
Yeah, sure. The program was established 5 years ago in March of 2018. It was established by a media outlet, which was really surprising for a lot of people. Just this media outlet was really interested in establishing a program which would attract more girls to science, technology, engineering, and math. And this is how we girls found out about the project. We also applied and we joined at a different time in 2018. But it was a really interesting project for us because it said that a group of girls will launch the first satellite of the Kyrgyz Republic. The most exciting part is that as a team, we did not only aim to launch the satellite, but we also established an educational, a social project where we would teach girls and women of different ages, how to solder, how to work with different microcontrollers, how to code, how to create their 3D models and print them on 3D printer. We were probably talking more about the education and some career opportunities they were able to get as we did when we joined the project. So we don't only have one goal of launching the satellite, but also to raise awareness about STEM, about career opportunities, about life opportunities, because we usually say that an educated girl and an educated woman will lead to an educated nation and also financial independence. And it's a really important aspect of what we're trying to achieve together with our team and our project. So I would say that when we try to describe our program, it is such a broad, we do have a lot of activities that we want to incorporate, and launching a satellite and making it the first satellite of our country is one of the fascinating goals that we have. But this is the most challenging, I would say.
I would imagine, yeah. As I mentioned in my introduction, when I first heard about it, I thought, what does that even mean? You're just sending a satellite? That sounds really crazy. But from what you're saying, the work you do is as much about that, exploring space, even conquering space, as it is to about reflecting and thinking about our societies down on our Earth. So what would you say your hope is in terms of making people realize things, in terms of challenging stigmas as well? What do you hope to make people realize?
Yeah, I think we can start from the context, and my colleagues can also add. So this program was established not simply because we wanted a satellite in space, but because our country, and maybe I would also say our region, Central Asia, we do have a lot of problems and issues when it comes to gender equality and specifically women's rights. If you look at statistics and data, we have a lot of gender-based violence. Our country, I think, is also popular, and it's very sad that we are popular for bride kidnapping. And a lot of girls do not get, to go to universities sometimes, especially it happens in the rural area, because they say that investing in girls' education doesn't, have a lot of returns. So it's better to make her primary caregiver in a household. So what we are trying to do is to show that there is an example of a different life, that an empowered woman, an empowered girl can empower a lot of people. And it's really important to have educated girls and educated women in your house and in your country. You don't have to, suppress them. They have to have all the equal rights, and they have to exercise them as well, because we do have a lot of laws that empower women. But when it comes to the situation itself, like de facto, right, when we say that, unfortunately, it doesn't happen. So we are trying to create role models where girls can look up and say, wow, I want to be like her. I want to be a scientist. I want to be an engineer. I want to send satellites. I want to do something fascinating. We also respect the right of women or girls to get married, give birth to children, and sit at home if they're willing to. But we have to understand that it was her choice. So basically what we're trying to achieve is to make girls and women realize that they do have a choice, that they can decide for themselves what they want to do. So therefore, we do have an all girls team, and we want to show that girls are capable of anything. So this is the primary goal of our program when it comes to the social part. So yeah, more empowered girls, I think, is also one of our.
It's about giving them an option. That makes sense. That's really brilliant. Can I ask more in practice, perhaps, what the work looks like on a daily basis? What are the steps between the moment you think, okay, we want to send a satellite into space, and the moment you actually do it? What does that look like? I suppose it starts with some kind of training. I would be also really curious to hear from all three of you, maybe if you have specialization or specific tasks you're assigned.
Yeah, I think I can start because it's my favorite topic. Because lots of people come to our office and come to us to see how we work, because it sounds so interesting, like building a satellite. But the reality is that most of the time we are working with our computers, finding new information, learning something new, finding new mentors, applying for grants, finding some funding opportunities, and it's not as exciting as it may sound. And sometimes we were laughing that there were some journalists coming to our office to see how we work, and they're like, can you make some action? Because they were implying that it was looking quite boring for them. But yeah, the reality is that we are just working with our computers, and most of the time, I think me and Kyzzhibek especially, we work with the administrative tasks, and Anya, for example, she works more with the technical projects for now. And yeah, it's just how it is. We're just trying our best to make it work. But yeah, we hope that people realize that it's not us working with 3D printers and actually building satellite details.
We do have exciting parts, but it's, for example, last year it was 2 weeks when we invited our mentors that helped us to finally work with our satellite draft for the first time. We had hands-on training, and another exciting part usually happens when we invite our mentees or trainees and teach them how to solder, how to make some Arduino projects, etc.
And what are some of the big obstacles you faced along the way?
Oh, this is my topic. Yeah. So I think if we look at the very beginning, I think I use the word unfortunately a lot. She shouldn't, but again, unfortunately, after the collapse of the USSR, we lost the bureau that was manufacturing some parts for the space missions where Anna's relative worked, because it was relocated to Russia because we were separated. And unfortunately, we could not preserve that any kind of space industry in our country, which means that we have no infrastructure or no specialists working. And it's been more than 30 years, right? For now. So this was our first obstacle. We did not know who to ask for advice within our country. So for the most part, we had to Google things. And, with the space industry, it's classified to some extent. That's why it's really hard, to Google everything. Google will not have all the answers when it comes to space or satellite building. Therefore, we had to find, or some mentors found us when they heard about us. And we have a lot of mentors worldwide, but because of the difference of time zones, sometimes it's really hard to connect. But yeah, we're very thankful to them for giving us all that knowledge that they had, and they were really eager to work with us. Second thing I would say is that because we had no infrastructure, therefore we have no universities where we can study in our country space engineering. So we had zero background in satellite building or aerospace engineering. So we had to learn everything from scratch, which was also really challenging, but I think we kind of made it happen. And then the next part, I think every space mission, to some extent as well, has some challenges when it comes to funding, because aerospace engineering is quite expensive. And even though we're aiming to launch nanosatellite, which is comparatively cheaper, still, it's quite an expensive journey and mission for our country. So I would, point out those three.
That makes sense. Aidana, I see you nodding. I think you've been through the obstacles as well. Maybe I can ask you how would you define success? All three of you, anybody who wants to jump in, how would you define success? Because Kyzzhibek, earlier you've hinted at the fact that of course the goal is to send a satellite, but it's so much more than just that. It's about the bigger societal impact. So do you have any way to assess this? Have you had feedback from other people being inspired by your project, other maybe younger girls looking up to you? What does success look like when you embark on such a journey?
The main goal for us is to launch the satellite, and we know that they often fail. They don't they can't even get a single signal from a satellite. So for us, it would be a success to get the message from the launch company that they threw it out. And if we get a single signal, that would mean that we have 100% success. 100% success.
Yeah, I think what Anna is implying is that it's our program maximum. Yeah. So that would make us the happiest if we launch a satellite and it works, because in accordance with some research, 50% even more of this educational missions fail. The satellite simply doesn't turn on in space. And I would say that we also have a program minimum or program middle when it comes to the success of our project. I think making difference even within our team, because our team has changed a lot throughout this journey. For example, Anna, she was studying linguistics, and then when she joined our program, and even before that, she realized that she wants to do something more scientific, more technical. And then, yeah, she switched her majors, and now she's, can we call you a software engineer?
Not really. Now I am a quality engineer, and formerly I was working not really a software engineer, but maybe a programmer that helped journalists to get data.
Yeah, we can call her software engineer. I think, yeah, she's really cool. And some other girls within our team also thought of going to learn some type of engineering, like mechanical or telecommunications. Some of the girls who studied engineering understood that, for example, like Dana, she understood that, well, probably I don't like doing it, so I will do something different. But the great thing about aerospace is that there are so many majors, there are so many specializations you can do. A lot of people do different type of work, which doesn't have to be really technical, so it's really great. So we do see this change within the team, and we see how it impacted. And we believe that some of the girls who were also part of our courses, or maybe who saw us somewhere or learned about us, were probably motivated. And for me personally, this is already a great impact, also a success story. So because we are aiming to change behaviors and change the attitudes. So for us, doing that and keeping the project alive and impacting more girls and youth within our region and the world is what we're really looking for. And for me, this is what I call success. Yeah, Aidana, do you have maybe?
Oh yeah, I think I want to add that for a long time, like since I joined the program, for me the maximum goal was, of course, like the working satellite in the orbit, and also like I really wanted to for us to establish like Kyrgyz Space Agency, because we don't have one. And after like working with some specialists, we realized that when you have a special like Kyrgyz Space Agency that works with government, it's easier to apply for some grants and for opportunities. So that was my like main goal. But and for a long time, I think I was thinking that if the project fails, it means that I personally failed. That like my 5 years of working here, like it was a waste of time. But last year when I came to Budapest to study, I started like working less in the project, and I think I started to seeing it as a third party, like, and I realized actually that we were doing so great. Like I was like, oh, for these last 5 years we have done so many collaborations, we have like taught more than like 100 girls, and that we were doing great. And I was like, wow, I done it. I never knew that you were so good. So I think yes, coming for quite a like small time when I was not working, I realized that actually like sending a satellite to space and like making it work, it's only like one part of the main goal, and that what we are doing is much bigger. So yeah, I think now I'm becoming more mature, like Kyzzhibek. Yes, and yeah. So yeah.
Do you get any backlash or negative comments around you being a woman working in space? Did people not take you seriously? Have you experienced any negative feedback?
I think it was when our interviews was like getting online. I remember there were some comments like, "Oh, girls are building satellites. They'll fight on the first week because they have like same T-shirt." Or I remember, I think on one video there was a comment, "Oh, like the only thing that girls can do well is like giving birth." So there were some like negative comments, and I think the worst ones were from women actually. I remember that in one of my interviews, there was a woman commenting like, "Oh, like CubeSat were like was started to be used like 20 years ago. What are you doing now, like 20 years later? Like you are not inventing something new." And I was quite upset because we were not saying that we are like doing some like, I don't know, like breakthrough. We were just trying to make this industry work in our country, and for us it's like doing like almost like a bare minimum. Like CubeSats are very like beginner stage projects. For example, in US countries or US and Europe countries, like school kids do these kind of projects. But in our country, because we don't have any kind of background in space engineering, it's quite hard. I mean, even like working with grounding, it was a very hard work because we realized that in Kyrgyzstan we don't have a proper grounding in houses. Because when we were like inviting our mentors, we were supposed to have all these like safety things checked, and we realized that people don't even look through some sort of basic things in everyday life. So yeah, I think it was quite a great journey, and I always laughed at because I didn't study for the last 4 years at university. I always laughed that this project was like kind of university of life for me because I learned so much and I experienced so much. So yeah, I love this project.
Inspiring project. It's really cool to hear about it. I'm really thankful for you guys to join us. I have one more question, Kyzzhibek, because you've mentioned, of course, the issue of money, which in any project is an issue, but especially when you want to send a satellite. How can we support your project? Is there a website where people can make donations, for example?
Yes. People certainly can support our project through Patreon by becoming our program's patrons. So we do also update and have some news there. And of course, we have PayPal, and we are going to launch our website really soon, so people can learn more about how can they support our program. And of course, they can always subscribe to our social media accounts to see our updates and news, and just share about our program.
Fantastic. We'll make sure to put all of that in the description below. Thank you once again for joining us. This was the Dark Matter podcast. I look forward to seeing you next time for another exciting episode about space. Take care.